Management Program, Triangle Transportation Choices. Appreciate everyone taking the time this afternoon for this optional information session about the next request for proposals for the Triangle Transportation Choices Program. There are some changes to this year's proposal for those of y'all who are familiar with the program, so we can certainly go over those. And I think we want to make sure that everyone understands that this isn't the only time that you can ask questions. Suchi and myself and other members of the team are available to help you in any way throughout the application process. We want this to be as easy as possible for folks to provide innovative approaches to reducing congestion and encouraging alternative modes in this very quickly growing area that we all call home in the Triangle. So with that, I'll hand it over to Suchi. I believe Suchi will hold questions till the end, maybe. Is that the best way? Okay.
Yeah,
excellent.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Sean. And hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I know a lot of people who have joined us today. They are the current awardees under our fiscal year 22 grant, but we do have some new potential applicants, and we are really excited that they've joined us today. So for the benefit of them, I think we would like to just quickly, Sean, at least introduce the TJCOG's team. So you just heard from Sean, and I am there. I'm the day-to-day and the first point of contact for anybody who has a question. Then we have Jenna. Jenna, did you want to just take a quick 1 minute to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I am the program analyst at TJCOG, so I do all the data analysis for the TDM program here, and I've also been developing the transportation choice hubs and reinvest neighborhoods maps. So definitely, if you have questions about those, you can direct them to me. And otherwise, yeah, direct them to Shuji.
Yeah, and there's Ryan too on the call. Ryan, are you there? He might be taking a minute. He might be in a different meeting, but we also have Ryan Eldridge on the team. He is the newest member on the team, and he manages what we call as Best Workplaces for Commuters. That's a program which is run by TJCOG, and he also does Safe Routes to School programming. And then we have our finance person who reimburses your expenses at the end of each quarter. So very important person that we definitely cannot forget. And so I will go ahead and share my presentation for today. Okay, here we are. So this is just at the very onset. I would like to clarify one thing, that today's session, it pertains to our traditional annual RFP. This year, for the first time, we released 2 RFPs, our regular RFP, the traditional RFP, and a special equity initiative based RFP. That information session is tomorrow at 10 a.m. And if any one of you is interested in attending that one, just let me know so that we can send a link to join. So just wanted to clarify at the very onset so that both the RFPs do not get mixed. However, I also want to remind you that that particular RFP is not open to the existing applicants. It's only for new applicants who have, and for those applicants who basically work with the DEI communities, the low-income, marginalized, or minority communities. So we are especially looking for grassroots level community-based kind of organizations who are doing that work. And then regarding our session today, we would be providing a brief overview of the program, especially for the benefit of our guest, who likely would be applying for this grant, and then provide some highlights for the RFP itself. And then we will be reserving a big chunk of today's session for the question answers. So just about the program itself, just as Sean mentioned, Triangle Transportation Choices is a transportation demand management program. And our key goal is, this is the key official goal, as they say, that's 25% reduction in the annual growth of vehicle miles traveled, VMT. That's the term you will find us throwing a lot, during this whole session. And then the key way that this goal is achieved is through outreach and marketing activities or events and campaigns. So our grant doesn't fund any construction projects, any capital infrastructure, and those kind of things. It's solely outreach and marketing activities. And Then there is a nice graph here that you can see that Jenna has produced, and she updates year after year, which shows that our program has basically, hit the goal and even exceeded the goal ever since the program has been in the place. And that's due to the hard work of all our awardees, many of whom are present today here at this session. So thank you. And just to elaborate a little bit more about TDM, we wanted to share this graphic, which is a very common graphic, often shared in TDM webinars, events. This graphic compares the space, the road space needed by 69 people who may be in a bus, biking, in cars, and just on foot. So as you can see, the part of the image, which is on the extreme left, that shows people in the bus and also just standing, or one may say walking on the road. The middle one is comparing the ones on the bikes and walking, I would say. And the extreme right is people in the cars. And as far as the sight can see, it's just cars. You can't see any empty space on the road. So basically what we're trying to say here is when people are in their cars, they need more infrastructure. We need more infrastructure on the supply side. However, if what we do is manage the demand side, which is what we're trying to do through our program to encourage people to get out of those cars and use alternative modes like biking and walking, then we need less infrastructure. Okay, did I just lose the presentation?
Looks like it.
I didn't do anything. Okay, so sorry about that.
Yep, we're back.
Okay, resume. Okay. Sure. So, but what we're trying to do through our program, Triangle Transportation Choices, is to manage. Sorry. Did somebody say anything? Okay. So what we're trying to do is to manage the demand side by encouraging our residents, commuters to get out of those cars and use those alternative modes. Hence, this term that transportation demand management. And then here are some stats that we wanted to share from very recent reports, which were commissioned by North Carolina Department of Transportation. And this graphic is comparing the VMT growth from 2012 to 2019. So definitely pre-pandemic times. But as you can see, that the urban growth rate in VMT for North Carolina is very close to twice to that of the national rate of 1.9%. So a lot of trips, more trips being taken than nationwide. So there's a clear need that we need to be careful to manage that demand on our infrastructure. So that really emphasizes the importance of this program. And these are some other numbers that were a part of another report done by a different firm for Ncdot, and the draft report was released just last month in December. And according to that report, which also took the data of the COVID times in consideration, it found that almost 20% of the personal trips, they are under 5 miles, and 40 to 50% of the trips are under 10 miles. So when one looks at those numbers, half of the personal trips, they're less than 5 miles. One can really think that there's a lot of potential to convert those trips under 5 miles to other modes like bike and walking, depending obviously upon the infrastructure available. So we just wanted to share some of these very recent stats, with all of you. And then talking about funding, that's the most important part, it's a grant program. So Triangle Transportation Choices is funded by federal dollars and state dollars. We get state dollars from Integrated Mobility Division of North Carolina Department of Transportation, and we get federal dollars through our 2 MPOs, Durham Chapel Hill Scarborough MPO and Campo Capital Area MPO under the CMAQ program. CMAQ is Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, which basically provides funding to all the State Department of Transportation throughout the country to reduce congestion and to improve the air quality. And then another important committee that you all should know about regarding our program is the Oversight Committee. Our Oversight Committee comprises of 5 members, 3 are voting members, 1 each from the 3 funders and 2 non-voting members, 1 from North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and the second from Triangle J itself. And when you all submit applications or proposals for the RFP, they will be sent, TJCOG is going to put them together and we will send it over to the Oversight Committee for review. They have 2 rounds of review and then they take the decisions which proposals should be funded or to what level. So Triangle J as a grant administrator stays in constant and regular communication with our Oversight Committee members. And I must say I've been with the grant for 3 years. I feel so proud to work with our OC. They are one of the most flexible and the nicest people, I've ever seen at that level. And they always do their best, to support all our partners, our grantees. So, that really makes our job easy. And then a little bit about the program administrator, what I mentioned just now, Triangle J gets the state dollars from Ncdot and the CMAQ dollars, they come to us, we act as a bypass agency. We do the program administrator, what we're doing in terms of administering that RFP every year. And then we also do evaluation and monitoring, and Jenna is the person who leads that. And then best workplaces for commuters is also housed at TJCOG. And then we disperse that money to all the applicants, proposals received. And for fiscal year 22, just this current fiscal year, we funded 13 local TDM service providers and 1 regional TDM service provider and 2 innovative projects. And this particular graph shows you, this the geographical spread of all these awardees, and most of them, they're either a municipality, they're a county or a higher education institution. Our RTP is the only one which is not really under any of these categories, but we don't really have any consultants, who have been funded through our program. So just trying to give you an idea of who all are funded under the program. And then continuing with funding, how much is the money? Show me the money, how much is available, how much can we apply? So our grant, thankfully, has always had a good, healthy budget as a result of funding by DOT and by CMAQ project. And as you can see, the total funding here for fiscal year 18 was $1.74 million. 1.8 million in fiscal year 19, and then fiscal year 20 was 1.73. So technically more than $1.5 million. However, the fiscal year 21 and 22 did see a little bit of a drop, and that's largely because of the COVID, the funding uncertainties, and the internal financial issues that North Carolina Department of Transportation faced. It was nothing related to the grant itself. And as of now, I know Sean has been working with Ncdot and both the MPOs for the fiscal year 23 grant applications, and we don't have any concern, regarding the funding for the next fiscal year. I know last year was a very different year, but it seems that this year we are back on track. And for the benefit of our new potential applicants, most of the grants that the program funds, they're between 65K to 110, 120K. But we also fund grants below 65K and over 110K. It's not that number doesn't go against you as long as it is a solid proposal. So I see a question, do you predict the funding will increase for fiscal 23 so that it go back to that one? Hannah, I'm not sure really, and probably Sean can talk better to it.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. It's really a matter of, and I'm getting some echo if folks can mute if you're not speaking. It's really a matter of what budgets and what applications we receive for the fiscal year. Some good news in relation to your question, Hannah, is that we actually have been approved to go back to a 3-year application for congestion mitigation air quality funds. as a joint application through both MPOs, which is excellent because we'll essentially have 3 years worth of our federal funds reserved to begin this fiscal year. So that allows us a lot of flexibility in rolling funds over to the next fiscal year, or if we have, a great number of applicants that are providing some really innovative project work plans that may require additional funding, we'll have that flexibility as well. So to more directly answer your question, it's really a matter of what we receive and what the funders, the Oversight Committee members, approve for funding. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
And then that was a quick overview about our program. And then moving on to the fiscal year 23 RFP itself, I'm assuming that all of you have taken a look at our website where we have posted both the RFPs, because that's the place where we have provided all the information about it. And if not, we have a link here, and I'm happy to post that link in the chat. I see that John has another question. Will Ncdot match the 3-year federal funding cycle? I don't think so, but Sean?
We have not heard that at this point. We have been lobbying for that pretty heavily for some time, though.
Yeah. So this is how the RFP is laid out on our website. This we highlighted in yellow annual fiscal year 23 RFP because we have the DEI RFP also. And here, I know this is very tiny, but we have what is called fiscal year 23 guidance document. And that is the document I encourage you all to read, first of all, when you're trying to fill the RFP, because it provides all the necessary information that you need to fill out so many attachments, but they're not hard. Many of them are very simple, so don't get overwhelmed that we have so many attachments. Many of them are just information, and we put them like this so that it's just easier to find information. And then the RFP timeline it was released in December 17th, and all the applications are due by 5 p.m. EST on February 18th. We are asking that you send them by email to me. And however, if any of you needs to submit the application by mail, just let us know so that we can make arrangements either to receive it in person at the TJCOG offices in Durham, or if you send it by snail mail, and even then it should reach us by 18th of February. And then we are already working on scheduling a meeting with our Oversight Committee to review those applications sometime in March, 3rd week. And once they review, they will be providing some comments. It's not necessary that everybody gets comments, but many a times there are. And then we put their comments together and reach out to each applicant, letting them know whether we have budgetary comments and the general comments on their work plan. And based on when we reach out to them, which we are hoping to be in the week of April 4th, we generally give each applicant, or everybody basically, 2 weeks to resubmit their application with those revisions. And then the OC meets again, and then they do the second and the final review, and which we are hoping to happen in the week of April 18th. And once that happens, we should be able to declare the final awards sometime around mid-May. Then we are going to touch upon the key pieces that we have mentioned in the guidance document. The first one is the eligible project types, and this information is on the page 3 to 5. So you see, basically, the DEI projects are different, but within the traditional annual RFP also, we are soliciting applications for our core programming and for our innovative projects. So innovative projects are these projects which are pilot projects and annual projects. They're not funded year after year. For example, for this current year, fiscal year 22, I know City of Durham was funded, Equitable Mobility Project, an innovative project, and then Center for Advanced Hindsight is doing an innovative project for us. So our program always encourages that innovation, those new strategies or techniques or whatever one may want to call, to test out what might help to shift that needle a little bit faster on shifting to alternate commute modes. And all the applicants, they are eligible to apply for both the core program and the innovative program. So there's no restriction on that part. And then to the core program, these are ongoing multi-year efforts. And we divide our awardees into two categories, local service providers and regional service providers. Go Triangle, which is the regional transit service, has been the regional service provider ever since the program started. And we don't really anticipate anybody else to be getting that part of the grant because they work across jurisdictions. They're the regional transit agency, and they have been phenomenal, you know, doing that part of the work at the grant for so many years now. And local service providers are basically municipalities or counties or higher educational institutions, UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, City of Raleigh, City of Durham, Chapel Hill, who are restricted to their own geographical areas. You know, obviously they collaborate with the other partners, but their effort doesn't spill, you know, to the other person's territory. So that's how we are saying local service providers and regional service providers. And then the matching part, because as I said earlier, we get federal grant and state dollars. We are bound by their guidelines, and the regional grant, it gets 80% of their budget as the grant, and they are only required to provide 20% as the match. However, all the local service providers and the innovative projects, the grant reimburses only 50%, and their organization must provide 50% match, which cannot be in kind. It must be dollar-to-dollar match. And the other thing that we would like to clarify is, for example, if an organization applies for $50,000, that's the grant portion of the money. They do not get the money up front. What happens is at the end of each quarter, every grantee, it submits invoices through an online platform called SharePoint to TJCOG, and TJCOG then puts together all the invoices at the end of that quarter for all the partners, and we submit that to Ncdot. And once Ncdot approves those invoices, that money comes to us and we cut out the checks, or we transfer it through EFT, the electronic mode of payment, to all the partners. So just wanted to clarify that that the grant works on the quarterly reimbursement basis. And then an important attachment that all the applicants must pay attention to is the budget, which is details are listed on the page 5 to 6, and that attachment is attachment E. And one thing that is slightly different from the past years is that this year we have logged up the formula cells because we wanted to prevent any kind of accidental mistake, you know, because we understand that for each applicant that budget may pass through several layers, several sets of eyes, and, you know, we didn't want that error to happen. So if for any particular cell, the numbers used by your organization are different than what may have been mentioned there, feel free to reach out to us and we can unlock that for you. You know, so it's not that you're stuck with it. We can unlock it for you and just send it back to you and you can fill it up. So we have that room there, but it's just that we didn't want to put it up front on the website, you know, largely to prevent those kind of unforeseen errors. And then an important part, especially again for the benefit of our guests here, is that the TDM coordinators or the staff, you know, which does the day-to-day work for this grant, they can be budgeted up to 100% of their time on the grant. However, for the finance specialist who might be helping with the invoicing and those receipts and all, the OC made a decision 2 years back when we were struggling with the funding that the finance specialist cannot be more than 2% of the FTE, and the administrative specialist only up to 5% of the FTE, and the supervisory role, people in the supervisory role, they cannot be more than 10% FTE. So that's in those pages. However, when I was actually taking a look at this today, you know, I was like, our funding is probably going to change a little bit, you know, hopefully, and we also have some new applicants and we want to encourage them. So what I would say is, I don't know, really, it's all up to the Oversight Committee what they decide to do. But if there is a but if there's a situation where you do need, and this is especially for the new applicants because the old ones are all grandfathered in, kind of, where you do need to put in a supervisory role, just reach out to us, talk to us, and see what we can do, or provide a strong justification so we can try and see if the OC would be willing to work around it. And then attachment D, that's the most important attachment or the piece of the grant that we review and the OC looks through. This is all the questions. Section 2 and 3, they especially need more attention. Section 2 pertains, this is a new section this year, it pertains to each of you looking at what geographical areas exactly you will be working in, and Jenna will be talking after a few slides to talk in detail about that. And then the section 3 is about the diversity and equity piece. How do you plan to integrate diversity and equity in your work? Have you already looked at certain communities based on your existing relationships? Have you had have you tried to reach out already to some community leaders? What the kind of events you may be thinking? And the reason that we ask these questions up front is we don't want applicants to be spending all that time, later on. We want you to put a little bit of a time and effort in answering that questions so that once you're awarded, you can really hit the ground running. And then I think this is the piece I'll probably hand over to Jenna.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. So just to talk about the region that is eligible for TDM funding, any programs that are located or doing their programming within the area that's shown in green in the map on the right are eligible for TDM funding in this program. So that includes all of Durham, Wake County, and then portions of Orange, Chatham, Granville, Franklin, and Johnston that fall within the DCH, the MPO, and Campo boundaries. There has been some confusion on this, so I wanted to just clarify it for everyone that this is the area that, as long as your organization falls in this area, then you are eligible to apply for TDM funding. Okay. And then I'm going to go into the new updates to this year's RFP, which are in some ways similar, in some ways quite different than prior years. So just want to point to the 3 attachments where you'll find the most information about this. First is the attachment B, which really just kind of gives some definitions for the different things that I'm going to be talking about. And then attachment C1 and C2 are maps, which are there for your use. There are also online versions of the maps if you want to use those instead to do some exploring and figure out which places you'd like to plan for your programming. But essentially, the transportation choice hubs is what we are now calling what we used to be called hotspots. So those are places where we want to prioritize employer-based outreach. And then the reinvest neighborhoods are new. It's a way of, not new, I should say, because we did introduce this last year, but this is a way of prioritizing areas for residential-based outreach. But stepping back from that, the first thing that I wanted to discuss or explain a little more is what we're calling your service provider coverage areas. We're just using new nomenclature this year to try to minimize the amount of confusion that there has been previously around what we called hotspots. Some people consider this their entire coverage area. Some people consider this just the, the areas on the map, the little dots on the map where you were supposed to focus your outreach. For getting rid of that. And this year, we're asking you to clearly define what you consider to be your entire service provider coverage area or the entire geographic area within which you plan to do your programming or could do your programming. So this is essentially a larger boundary, perhaps, than what you would have considered your previous hotspots, but it can mean different things for different applicants. It would mean something different for, say, Len and Chapel Hill. Len, I'm going to pick on you a lot in the next couple of slides, just a heads up. And it would mean something different for Amanda, for UNC. So the attachment B does give some examples for different cases, which may not include every possible case. And if you feel like none of the 3 examples that I gave in the attachment really apply to you, feel free to reach out to me and I can walk through it with you and figure that out together. But essentially, there is a spot on your cover sheet which used to say Geographic Region. Yeah, that's what it was. Used to be on the cover sheet. And essentially, this is just going to be your entire service coverage area. So if you want to go to the next slide, Shuchi, the example I'm going to give here is Chapel Hill. Not just because I like to pick on you, Len, but also because it's where I live. So I understand it the best. So if you were Len and you were trying to, figure out what is my whole service provider coverage area and what would I write on my cover sheet, I would recommend, after going back and forth with Len a few times about this, essentially saying that it's all of the area within the town of Chapel Hill municipal boundary, showing a map on the right. You don't have to include a map if you want to. I can help you figure that out. But essentially, the area in blue you see on the right is the entire area that I've included that's within both the Chapel Hill municipal boundary and plus downtown Scarborough, excluding locations that are covered by UNC. So we want you to both say what your service provider coverage area includes, and then anything within that area that it would exclude due to an existing service provider. I do realize that you don't know who all is applying right now, so there could be someone within your provider coverage area that could be applying. So don't worry about that. Just if you're an existing provider, just worry about what there is right now. And Christina is saying, why just downtown Scarborough? After I spoke with Lynn, I believe she was telling me that, is it Tyler that does the outreach in downtown Scarborough? I'm trying to remember.
Zachary.
Zachary, thank you. Sorry. Who does some outreach in downtown Scarborough, but those are really the only places where he has been doing them thus far. So that this is very specific to like Len's situation, which I realize everybody's going to have some different, tweaks that may need to happen. But we are asking you this so that we can help really kind of tailor the Reinvest Neighborhood and Transportation Choice Hub maps to your needs, so that essentially now that I know what the area is that Len considers her coverage area, then we can go look at both the Transportation Choice Hub or employment density maps and then residential density for the Reinvest neighborhoods. And I can say, well, this one Reinvest neighborhood is located in North Chapel Hill, is that an area you'd like to focus on for doing residential outreach? Hopefully that makes sense. But this is really probably only going to apply to people who work for like a municipality or a county type situation where there are clear boundaries around different towns. And then, for universities, I know after speaking with Amanda, she mostly is just working on main campus, but there's also a couple locations outside of main campus where she may be doing some outreach. So, she can include that in her description as well on the cover sheet. Okay. So moving down from there in terms of where to focus your outreach within your service provider coverage area, the first thing that we're introducing this year, Transportation Choice Hubs. And those are places where there's high employment density in the region. So this is pretty similar to at least the underlying data layer that we were using before for hotspots, different data source, but the outcome is the same. What we're looking for here are very highly dense employment areas. The map image on the right in this slide is also the image that you'll find in attachment C1, which is just the static version of the map, meaning that it's just a picture. It's not interactive, but there is an interactive online version. The link is here. It's also in attachment C1, and you're more than welcome to use that version if you'd like to essentially look for places within your coverage area where you'd like to plan some employer-based outreach for the upcoming year. If you go to the next slide, Susie. Doing a Chapel Hill example here again. Like I said, I actually know the names of the neighborhoods, so it's a little bit easier to do for me. But this would be an example for anyone. There's a section in your proposal narrative, which is attachment D, and that section is 2.1, where we have a little table that we want you to fill out that describes the areas that you plan to prioritize your employer-based outreach. You're also free to attach a map. Either you could take the image from the previous slide, that static image that's in attachment C1, or you can use the interactive online version, which is what I did in this example. I just kind of zoomed in close to Chapel Hill, and then I took a screenshot, took that screenshot and copied and pasted it into PowerPoint, and then drew some circles and numbers, just to make it easier to identify what each place was. So for number 1, that's downtown Chapel Hill, where I'm calling downtown Chapel Hill. That would be a good place to focus employer-based outreach. I'm sure Len already does that, so probably no big change there. So number 2, it's downtown Scarborough. 3 was like University Place, Eastgate Plaza area, where there's lots of like retail and restaurants. 4 is the Rams Plaza and East Chapel Hill area. And then the 5th was Chapel Hill North area, where there's some jobs, and again, mostly retail. Also some offices. And, you know, in terms of what she would be doing within those, I'm going to leave that part up to her. I didn't want to guess and make an example there for her table. And you'll see, yes, all of these are transportation choice hubs. So you can say yes in that column. Totally fine if you want to circle a different area on this map and say, no, it's not a transportation choice hub, but here's why I would like to be doing some outreach there. Give us some examples. That's fine. I'm seeing Lynn say, so if Chapel Hill only wants to cover within town limits, then we simply state that in the grant application, correct? Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly, just as long as that's clearly defined in as many words as it takes, then we will be on the same page. That's what we're trying to do here, just get on the same page. So hopefully that is clear enough. If you want to go ahead to the next slide, Chi-Chi. So it's basically the same thing for reinvest neighborhoods. There's a static map version available in attachment C2. There are quite a few places you'll notice that have like that crosshatch. I forgot to mention that in the Transportation Choice Hubs version, but these are places mostly you can see in like Franklin and Johnston County, but also Southern Wake, where there are not currently bus routes. I will say that if you use the interactive online version of the Reinvest map or Transportation Choice Hubs map, once you kind of zoom in closer, you'll see a lot of those bus routes start to pop up, and there's also sidewalks and bike lanes that'll pop up to get even closer. That'll kind of help you essentially figure out, well, what are the alternative transportation options available? That doesn't mean that you should not consider doing residential outreach in neighborhoods that don't have bus routes or sidewalks or whatever. Certainly those areas could be places to do some outreach about STRNC or other alternative mode options. But I just want to make sure that I pointed out what the reasoning was there. And yeah, so basically these, the attachment C2 also gives a little bit more of a description of what the data sources were and methods for deciding how many thresholds were met and what each of those are. But these are just, you know, neighborhoods or areas where there is a higher than average concentration of people who are non-white, who are low to moderate income, and then also a lot of people in the area may not own vehicles. So that's the main gist of it. I've kind of talked about that before, so I'm happy to go into it in more detail if anybody wants, but like I said, that information is included also in attachment C2, so feel free to check that out, or if anybody has other questions, I'm happy to answer them. You go ahead into the next one. So again, if I was Len and I was looking at the Reinvest neighborhood map and trying to find places to prioritize residential outreach, I would see that there's a few spots definitely within the Chapel Hill municipal limits. There's some spots that would probably be Amanda's coverage area, so UNC campus, she doesn't have to worry about that. And there's also some spots in Carborough that are up to her. I didn't circle them on the map because I don't know exactly what her application is going to look like. So for right now, I'm just assuming it's Chapel Hill. And there are about 3 spots that pop up on this map. So one being, again, like the North Side neighborhood in Chapel Hill and downtown Chapel Hill, the University Place and Eastgate Plaza neighborhood, which was also a transportation choice hub, and also number 3. The Rams Plaza East Chapel Hill area, which also was a transportation choice hub. So that may have just been a coincidence. I don't know if that's what a lot of people are going to find, that a lot of places that they're identifying for employer-based outreach are also places they could be doing residential-based outreach, because that would be nice and simple. But it may not be the case. I didn't do this for everyone. Yeah, so I think that's it. And happy to take any questions now, or we can just open it up for overall questions.
And Jenna, I'll just make a quick statement. I very much appreciate all Jenna's work in the transition to transportation choice hubs from hotspots. And, we just want to be clear. We hope folks aren't intimidated or confused by the shift. The spirit here through, guidance from members of the Oversight Committee, the funders, is to really get away from the hotspot model for purposes of not restraining where services can take place. So really allowing for more flexibility and for everyone here as practitioners, as service providers, to use that interactive map to see where facilities exist, where they're planned to be, to hopefully improve all the program service delivery, right? And just having access to additional data layers and targeting where we have our TDM services. So really, want to give Jenna kudos for helping us move forward and improve that process for prioritizing geographical areas for our services. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And we would like to open the floor to questions.
I don't have. Oh, you can go, Kim.
I think Kim's screen froze.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Hannah,
Hannah, hand up, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So this was a great presentation. This is my first time applying for the grant. And I just wanted to know, is there any other documentation that provides some clarification on the funding for the document E or attachment E?
Attachment E is the budget template, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I didn't know if there was just anything else to like help walk through that, since everyone's budget's going to be a bit different. Like
sure.
what?
Good question. We don't have anything, an additional document, but we are happy to schedule a meeting and help you, find answers and even help you with the budgeting if there are certain numbers that you want to talk about. We can
Yeah, the budget template is probably the most wonky, unfun part of what we have to do for these funds. It's an old Ncdot budget template that hasn't changed in literally decades. But so we're kind of our hands forced to use that template. The trickiest thing in my experience, and I know some past grant recipients have seen this as well, is how Ncdot's budget template requires you to calculate fringe and indirect rates within that staffing portion of the template. But yeah, Hannah, as Suchi mentioned, we're more than happy to schedule a time to review your first draft budget template, and same with anyone else on the call. That could be the trickiest part. The most important thing is to remember that 50-50 match, which you have to demonstrate in the template. And yeah, make sure that the indirect and fringe rates that the Ncdot budget template calculates matches whatever your institution, your home organization needs.
Thank you, Sean. And also just to add to it, Hannah, if you're looking for more guidance on those G line numbers like G to 11 to 12, so those are the UPTAS codes, UPTAS. I believe in the budget I have provided a link to that, to give you more detail what exactly is covered under that particular line item or not. And if you don't find it there, I can always send you that document, which is an NC State document, North Carolina State document. Were you looking for that particular information?
Yes, just more clarification on, every row and all of that.
Okay, I'll be happy to send you that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And I think we do see a hand up by Katie. Yeah.
Hi, I'm at Wake Tech. Thank you all for putting this together. It's really helpful. I wanted to ask, because we're a college, those two in section 1 using the maps within employer outreach, and the other one was a residential outreach. I'm assuming that colleges would just use their campuses or their campus locations where they're planning activities for those same map overlays. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And Jenna, if you want to chime in, please.
Yeah, we put a note, and I realize that there's a lot of text going on, but I think, in attachment D, especially under the residential based outreach, 1 section 2.2, there's a note that says, the grant recognizes that some applicants may have limited residential areas within their service provider coverage area, for example, educational institutions. Such applicants may still plan to do outreach in residential neighborhoods surrounding their institution's physical boundaries. And if so, just describe those areas in the table below. Like I said, they mostly pertain in terms of service coverage area and, employer-based outreach areas. Those are mainly going to be covered by Town of Chapel Hill, City of Durham, Lake County, City of Raleigh, places like that have like an actual jurisdiction. For universities and colleges, specifically Wake Tech, what I would ask for then is just essentially like which campuses are you going to be focusing your outreach on? It could be main campus or RTP campus or one of the other Wake Tech campuses to describe that. And or if there's any other, like I know in UNC's case, there's some buildings that are located away from the main campus that Amanda was talking about where she does some outreach. So like I said, there's really no like one size fits all type of thing for this. Right. And we certainly understand that different places would have different interpretations of the maps and different places that they would be listing. But those are just some of the examples that I would, expect to see if I was looking at Wake Tech's application. I would say, which campuses.
I'm thinking as long as we have activities that match up with that overlay, you would want to see that, even if it's not specifically residential or employer, because we're a college. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And I think, Kim, did you want to go ahead and ask a question? You're still muted.
No, I couldn't. No, I was just going to comment that that I wanted to say thank you for moving the maps online to where they are more dynamic and just more user friendly. I've been asking for that for what seems like ages, and I'm just happy that we finally moved in that direction.
Yeah, definitely. I understand. It's so much easier and it's really a lot better for being able to explore them further.
Any more questions?
So we do have a few in the chat if we want to go through those, if nobody else, or if Shelley, if you just want to kind of walk us through those few that you posted.
Yeah, so thank you. I tried to put them in the chat in case that was easier, but because I thought of them in advance and tried to make them as succinct as possible. One of the parts of the application, is justifying if you're a repeat applicant, why you're the best place or provider for that service area, and clearly communicate quantitatively your program's past progress and impacts. And we have seen some decline in some programs, since the pandemic started. So our percentages on some things will actually be negative compared to, progress in FY19 or even a good portion of FY20. So it's part question / part making sure that TJCOG and the Oversight Committee know what to expect there for regional programming.
Sure. Yeah, and just, a reminder that there's really there are 2 rounds of Oversight Committee reviews. So, that first round provides an opportunity for members, of the Oversight Committee to provide feedback and or questions, for clarifying anything, like that example, Shelley. And that's then on our plate as staff to work with you to make sure that we clearly communicate any need for clarification or answer any questions that they have for them. And then that gives applicants the opportunity to, make the necessary revisions, if any, or clarifying statements so that we can go back during that second round of reviews with the funders.
Perfect. The next one I have is on just branding clarification, because I know it kind of started last year and then we moved forward with it. And looking at the application this year, it looks like when it comes to the branding with the Triangle Transportation Choices, it's still up to the service providers in terms of determining when it's appropriate to mix or match or use the TTC terminology. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I didn't want to step on Suchi's toes, but yes. That's correct, Shelley. Yeah, and the whole, for folks that are new, the whole purpose of the rebranding was to look at peer regions like the Washington, D.C. metro area and commuter connections. Just makes a lot more sense for someone that's not a transportation planner or that works in this, that transportation demand management doesn't really mean a lot to a majority of folks. So Triangle Transportation Choices just communicates the purpose of the program much better. But yeah, we're not requiring that be used at any specific time or in any way, but of course, encourage consistency in how we communicate, service providers' participation in the regional effort.
We have tried to start adding it to things and using the language more frequently. And especially with moving with the reinvest, I think it's a really good choice. And then 3.24, asking about promo items, incentives. So before that even starts, for the rest of the partners, Go Triangle will submit the application to include the promo items that we distribute regionally that are branded for Go Perks, Share the Ride and See, and Go Triangle. So that'll still be in there because we typically get that one. But here, is it referring to incentives, both in terms of promo items, and then, we've put in incentives for getting van pool started. I know some local areas have done that previously, but it's not always there. So in that section, promo items, van pool incentive for starting new vans. We don't have fares right now, but they may resume in the future to attract new transit riders. All of that is still within that concept.
If that was a question, Shelley, could you rephrase? I'm not quite sure that I.
Oh, so it's 3.2.4 is the section in the RFP application, and it's referring to providing incentives. And I just wanted to get clarification that when we're talking about incentives here, it's both promo items, but also can include requests for funding to start incentives like beginning new van pools, or if fares resume, transit passes to get individuals to try to ride the bus for the first time. All of those are still included.
Yes, and as you know, incentives is always a tricky discussion, depending on what policies are in place by what funding entity. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and apply for for everything that you'd like to see. And that way, the worst thing that can happen is a question or it's declined. But if you don't apply, then there's no chance, right?
And Shelly, that's in the narrative section 3.2.4?
I think so. Let me see if I can pull it up.
No, I don't think so. It's in the narrative.
It's attachment D, I think, is what I was pulling from.
Oh, so
Yeah,
that's narrative.
I chose the wrong section, but it's somewhere from that document. I think I misnumbered things.
So yeah, 3.2.4 is plans for providing incentives to promote alternative commute choices.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it would include, yeah, what Sean said essentially. I don't want to repeat. Yeah.
Okay. So it wouldn't necessarily be reserved for starting a van pool to Durham VA or to Duke. We could use it for a neighborhood that's identified in the Reinvest Act.
Sure.
They have like downtown Raleigh a lot of times is walkable to a lot of different employers if that's the final destination, and that would still count as well.
Yes, at this time, it's not earmarked for anything specifically.
Okay, perfect.
And then Len, you have a question saying the language transportation options makes so much sense rather than TDM. In the grant narrative application, maybe abbreviate to TO or still reference TDM. Did you transport? I'm not exactly sure I'm understanding your question correctly. Did you mean to say triangle transportation choices or transportation options?
Oh, I'm sorry, choices. But what I'm saying is throughout the narrative, once I've said the words transportation demand management, after that, I reference TDM. So now, should we still just call it TDM, as the Oversight Committee probably won't be thinking of the new language, or should we can we abbreviate it to the new language, or what do y'all prefer?
I'd say, Len, whatever's easiest, so you don't lose sleep over it. But yeah, that is a good question. I mean, in my mind, at least, Suchi might think otherwise, but Triangle Transportation Choices is the name of the program, right? And the service is Transportation Demand Management, right? Whereas they were one and the same in the past. So hopefully that helps. If you're talking about, what are you doing? It's providing transportation demand management services. You're not doing or providing Triangle Transportation Choices, right? That's the program title. That's how I would think of it, as at least.
Yeah, I
got it. Thank you.
And
okay,
I will just add out there, since I asked the question about incentives, especially if there's anyone who's doing this for the first time, even since July 1, 2020, I think, is when fares were suspended, around that time for all of the transit agencies. At this time, Go Triangle has not made any determination of whether or not fares will continue to be suspended. So if you have an area where you think you're really going to want to promote transit, don't necessarily assume that transit will be free. You may want to put funds in there with a little caveat to purchase passes if transit fares do not remain suspended.
Thanks, Shelley. That's a good point, and that reminds me, a good point to make here as well is that we do allow for budget revisions or amendments. We try to do that only once, maybe twice. Once being midway through the fiscal year, so around December of the calendar year, and then if needed, at the end of the fiscal year, closing out the fiscal year to reconcile any line items or whatever's needed. So I guess that's just to say, don't feel like whatever you submit that is approved is what you're beholden to. We understand things change, especially, in these times. So.
Thank you, Sean. We are a minute past the hour. Thank you so much for joining us. However, us, the TJCOG team, we are happy to stay behind if some of you may have questions, but we understand some of you may have some other meetings and may want to leave. And this is not the last opportunity for any of you by any means to reach out to us. We are here to help. We want you to submit a strong application. So, feel free to reach out to us. I know sometimes I know that was something that I thought in the past when I was to apply for a grant application. If I'm going to go and ask questions to the administrator, that might go against me, but that's not the case at all here. We are here to help you. And so please, without any hesitation, just reach out to us. And no question is a wrong question. It never hurts to ask. So we are just thrilled. Thank you for joining us, and especially about the new potential applicants, Morrisville, Scarborough, and we would definitely love to see your applications. Sean, did you want to add anything else?
No, I'll echo your comments, Suchi. Thank you, everyone. We're looking forward to helping review your applications with the funders. And as Suchi said, please reach out to any of us on the TJCOG team with any questions, or if we can help, even just review before submitting, we're happy to do so. So thanks so much. Looking forward to seeing everyone's proposals.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Stay warm this weekend.
Yes. Bye.
Bye. Michael, did you have a question or?